Here we see the Old Testament and New Testament are one testament, right? So the Old Testament, we see 39 books, right? We see 39 books in the Old Testament. And in the New Testament, what do we see? We see 27 books for a grand total of what? 66 books in the complete whole Bible, the Old and New Testament alike. But in the Bible, we see what? We see one theme, and it was written around 1,700 years over time by 40 different authors with the same message, the same theme. This is so cool. It's just awesome stuff. So one theme, and what is that? It's about Yeshua. So here's the temple back in Jesus' time, what it would have looked like with all the priests here, and the high priest probably being inside of the holy place. And Jesus, who is the ultimate high priest, because the high priest was a foreshadowing of him, we see him. But we're going to look at how Jesus explained who he was in the New Testament, found in those Old Testament scriptures. And we go to Luke chapter 24, right? So that very day, it says in Luke 24, verse 13, two of them were going to a village named Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. So it took them about 2 hours to walk with this disguised Jesus, right? The resurrected Jesus, and he tells them where he's found in the Old Testament. And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them in all of the scriptures the things concerning himself, right? Moses and all the prophets, that meant the whole scriptures back then. And where are our hearts not burning, they said later after he disappeared out of their sight, where are our hearts not burning within us, right? It was a good burning. God's love, the fire of God burning in their hearts when he was speaking to us on the road while he was explaining the scriptures to us. So what would he have gone through? I can imagine, you can imagine he went through Genesis chapter 22 with Abraham and Isaac, right? Of course he did. We know that he would have done that, and we're going to look at that right now. So Abraham and Isaac were going up the mountain, right? And they went on this journey, and God said to him before, he says, take now your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah. This is what God tells Abraham. Take now your son, your only son. Was Abraham his only son? No, he was not. So God was making a point here, right? He was painting a picture, illustrating for us, for today, so that we could understand that this was a foreshadowing of what Jesus would do on the cross. So take your only son. This is the different language, because Abraham had 2 sons actually, but he says take your only son, whom you love, Isaac. Now that's very important, because that's a first mention of love in the Bible. When there's a first mention of something in the scriptures, it is very, very important. So, and he says to him, he says, and go to the land of Moriah. Where was that? Well, here's the lower city of David in Jerusalem as it looked back in those days, right? And up here is where the Temple Mount is today. And this is where the first temple with Solomon was. And later the second temple. And now you'd see that Dome of the Rock up there. But this is the land, the mountain of Moriah. Wow. So God's telling him to take his son, his only son, whom he loves, up to this mountain. And he says, offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which I will tell you. So Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey. Now we see a donkey involved. Remember Jesus on Palm Sunday riding on the donkey. And then Abraham said to his young men, stay here with the donkey. And then we'll be back to it, he said. We'll be back to you. So he had faith. He knew they would be back. They would both be back, because that was the son of the promise. And here you could see a nice picture of Jerusalem there with the donkey. And Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and laid it on his son Isaac. And he took in his hand the fire and the knife. Wow. The fire and the knife, and that fire speaks of God's wrath, and the knife as well. Remember, Jesus was pierced on his side, and he put the wood and laid it on his son Isaac. What a picture of the cross. Jesus carried that wood beam up the mountain, right, to go to the cross. And Isaac spoke to his father Abraham, and he says, my father. And it was just like when Jesus when he was carrying the cross, he was being nailed to the cross, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing. He cried out to his father. And Abraham, or Isaac said to him, here I am, my son. So Abraham did say this, here I am, my son. And he said, look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said to him, my son, he said, God will provide for himself the lamb for the burnt offering. What does that speak of? The Lamb of God, Jesus. John the Baptist called him. He said, behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. This is so good. And Abraham raised his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. A ram is a mature lamb, a mature sheep, mountain sheep, right? And it was caught in the thicket by its horns, like the thorns pushed down on Jesus' head. Wow. So now, my friend, now we're going to get into Joseph. And this is amazing because Joseph is a huge type and a picture of Yeshua HaMashiach, if you're in Israel, Jesus the Messiah. Jesus the Messiah. Christ just means Messiah in the Greek. And he is a huge picture of him. We're going to look at that right now. So check this out. So Joseph, or Yosef, if you want to say it in Hebrew, he was the father's most favored son, and he gave him this tunic of many colors. It meant he was like management. He was very important. And that made his brothers jealous, and they hated him, right? So Genesis 37 says, and Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a multicolored tunic. Some interpretations say maybe a seamless tunic that could have been long-sleeved and down to his ankles. And here we see Joseph had that dream where those 12 sheaves or 11 sheaves bowed down to him, his sheaf, right? Speaking of this dream that he had where they worshiped him, and his brothers hated him for this. And his brothers saw that the father loved him more than all his brothers, and so they hated him and could not speak to him on friendly terms. Jesus is God's most beloved son, his beloved son. Take your son whom you love. Remember, we just looked at that. And this made them jealous. And the religious leaders were jealous. It says that in the Bible. They were envious. Pilate knew it was because of envy that they had delivered Jesus to him. So here's a scroll of Isaiah. Isn't this amazing? The whole scroll of Isaiah is intact. It was found in the Dead Sea cave of Qumran, the Dead Sea Scrolls, as they call it. This is so cool. Check this out. So here we're going to look at it in the Dead Sea Scrolls, Isaiah 53, and how it connects with Joseph's story. This is really cool stuff, is it not? And hey, my friend, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. I think you would be interested in that, and I think it will. You'll get videos like this. I'm going to Israel January 15th through the 23rd. I'll be reporting to you. We'll get the live stream thing figured out. We'll be doing that and teaching videos from Israel, so you don't want to miss that, my friend. All right, let's continue, and here we go. So, and this is just like a live stream. I don't edit my videos, by the way. So let's continue on in Joseph and how he's a type of Christ. So let's look at Isaiah 53 first. He was despised as one whom men hid their face, and we didn't respect him. He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Wow. If you read this to your Jewish friends, by the way, they will think you're reading from the New Testament. They will. It happens all the time. So here we see Joseph. He was being despised and rejected by his brothers. In fact, they conspired to kill him, to murder him as he approached them in Dothan, right? And the punishment that brought our peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. By his wounds we're healed, my friend. And all we like sheep have gone astray. Everyone has turned to his own way. Wow. And Yahweh has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He put on him the sin. In fact, it says that Jesus became sin who knew no sin. But we saw that in Joseph's story as well, because Joseph, he was despised and rejected by his own. He was sold for pieces of silver. He was handed over to the Gentiles and sold for silver. By who came up with that plan? It was Judah. And that is where the name Judas derives from. It derives from the name Judah. And that's what happened there. He was handed over to the Gentiles. Later, he was falsely accused. He was sent down into that place of the condemned. And it was down there that two were condemned with him. One of them lives and is restored to life. The other one is cursed to death. Wow. Then he was raised up, right? Raised up out of that place of the condemned, brought before the throne. He was the only one found worthy in all of the land, the only one found who can interpret those dreams. And that's like Revelation 5, where Jesus takes the scroll out of the right hand of him who sits on the throne, and he was the only one found worthy, the Lamb of God, to take that scroll. And what was in that scroll? It was about the end events. And this is what Joseph was showing us too, because there's a 7-year harvest, or a great revival, you might say, or a harvesting of souls. But then after that, there's a 7-year time of great famine or trouble, like the tribulation period. And that is when Israel is saved, my friend. Wow. And you can see it right here. There's a archaeological find where they show these Egyptians going down. It's like a one-way trip. They fill up these sacks of grain out of these huge grain silos, by the way. Really cool stuff, and it's proof of Joseph's story. Here's another wall picture, a wall painting that they found in Saqqara, Egypt, and it shows these Hebrews coming back to Jerusalem, and they're not Jerusalem, excuse me, back to Egypt. And here they are wearing new clothing, and they know they're Hebrews because they have the yellow pigment on the paint on their skin here. So really cool stuff right here, and it's archaeological stuff that proves. So hey, by the way, my friend, this is my friend Mike Pritchard has this company called Pritchard Websites. I would check them out if you're in ministry or if you do anything else. He does regular businesses, landscaping businesses, photography business, anything you have. This guy makes amazing websites. I'm not being paid to do this, by the way. I just trust him. He's a friend of mine. I trust him. He built my website as well. But yeah, Pritchard Websites, check them out. Here's another slide so you can see what he did for me. If you go to my website, you can get my books. You can see my YouTube channel. You just click on all that stuff and it comes right up. He's really careful about all the ADA rules and things like that so you won't get sued. Yeah, check it out. Mike Pritchard website. Here's his contact information right here. And here's some of the websites you can check out. So let's continue on, my friend, and I want to say sorry about the live stream not working out. We're going to do that next time, but this one is like a live stream. You can be commenting down below as we go along here, and next time I will have it figured out, I promise. Before we go to Israel, it will definitely be figured out. All right, guys, God bless you. I love you, my friend, and don't forget you can click on this playlist right here, How to Find Jesus in the Old Testament. And by the way, here's my new book, See Jesus in the Old Testament, available at Amazon, 320 pages, chock full of the places where Jesus is found in the Old Testament. You might want to check that out, my friend. God bless you. I love you.